Caitlin Clark is going to miss tonight's game, and she's got a groin injury. I have been banging the drum online and on here for the last 2 weeks saying there's something wrong with her legs. There's something going on. Is it the nagging quad injury? But it's something to do with the lower half of her body. It is a groin injury. Now we've got an idea of why she's struggling from long range, where it requires, some real push.
It was bound to happen. Caitlin Clark, sidelined with a groin injury. But don't let the medical report fool you. This isn't a coincidence. It's the chilling climax of weeks of relentless physical abuse, baffling officiating, and a sinister, unspoken agenda against the league's most valuable star. Her body finally gave out, but the question isn't why now. It's who allowed this. Because the truth behind Clark's injury is far darker than just a strained muscle. It reveals an unseen war on the hardwood, and a league seemingly content to let its golden goose be broken. Get ready, because what we're about to expose will make you question everything you thought you knew about the WNBA.
And that is the news that Caitlin Clark is out with a groin injury. Now, if you guys have been watching the Indiana Fever and Caitlin Clark play over the past 3 games, it is very clear that Caitlin Clark is not feeling like Caitlin Clark. She has only made 1 3-pointer in her last 3 games, and even just last game, she only had 6 points. But it wasn't only her performance on the court that was worrying fans, it was also just her demeanor, her energy. It felt like something was wrong. She wasn't hyping up the crowd like she normally does.
For weeks, an unsettling shift had been visible to anyone truly paying attention. A slow, agonizing transformation from the vibrant, unguardable phenom to a player visibly battling an unseen enemy. Long before any official announcement about a groin injury, the warning signs were flashing, bright as stadium lights in the night. Dedicated fans, armed with nothing but their eyes and an intuitive, almost telepathic connection to their favorite player, noticed it first.
Caitlin Clark is out again with an injury, which is the worst thing you can hear if you're a fan of the Indiana Fever, and really if you're a fan of the WNBA, because obviously Clark is the engine that makes the Indiana Fever go, and is the single biggest driver of interest in the WNBA, and it's not close. And anytime somebody is out of the lineup, you get concerned, especially when it's Clark, obviously, considering she had already been injured earlier this year and is now out with what is being dubbed a left groin issue.
The signature shots, once so fluid they seemed to kiss the net with preordained precision, were now clanking off the rim with an uncharacteristic flatness, often falling short, lacking that familiar explosive lift. Her explosive drives, which once carved through defenses like a hot knife through butter, now looked hesitant, almost labored, her usual burst strangely absent. This wasn't the confident stride of a player in full control. It was the strained gait of someone holding something back, or perhaps someone fighting to keep it together.
Caitlin Clark out yet again with a left groin injury. Caitlin Clark will be missing tonight's game versus the Los Angeles Sparks. The venue will be open. Out with a left groin injury. We go from a quad to a quad to a groin.
The vibrant energy that had defined her entire career, that electric spark which ignited arenas and television screens alike, appeared to be dimming, flickering like a faulty bulb in a horror movie. Gone were the emphatic celebrations, the defiant stares, the confident nods after a clutch bucket, the fiery exchanges with opponents that bespoke a competitive spirit, unburdened by pain. In their place was a quiet intensity, a visible weariness that spoke volumes even when her voice remained silent. Her usual animated demeanor on the bench, the constant encouragement and rallying of teammates, had given way to a more subdued presence. A quiet focus that could easily be mistaken for calm, but felt, to those who knew her, like resignation.
The Indiana Fever just lost a really tough game against the Los Angeles Sparks, and it comes back to the 4 things the Indiana Fever always have trouble with: missed layups, missed free throws, interior defense, and rebounding. That is why the Indiana Fever lost this game, and that's why they cannot be a championship team in my opinion. You have to be able to get stops, you have to be able to rebound the basketball when you do force stops, but there was some positives in this game as well that we have to get into. Kelsey Mitchell was spectacular. I love to see her furthermore breaking her shooting slump. She had 20 points today on 44% shooting from the three-point line, so you like to see her have 3 back-to-back games in a row where she's having over 20 points. She's totally in her groove now.
There were subtle tells, moments caught by eagle-eyed cameras and shared in hushed tones online. A fleeting grimace after an innocuous-looking bump, a hand instinctively reaching for her lower back or upper leg after particularly brutal collisions. One particularly viral clip showed her pregame routine, a noticeable bulky tape around her upper left leg, long before any official announcement surfaced. It was a silent distress signal, a personal SOS plastered across her body, yet seemingly ignored by those who held the power to intervene, to pull her, to protect her. This wasn't a mere shooting slump, a temporary dip in form that every athlete experiences.
Her pre-game routine, she was doing some things differently. Some fans also noticed that she had her upper left leg taped during a couple of those games. So there's a lot of things going on, a lot of things pointing to the fact that something wasn't right. And I have to be totally honest with you guys, I'm not surprised by this news at all. I was just having a conversation with my fiance last night and I told him, I was like, I think Caitlin's hurt. I'm not going to be surprised if sometime soon the Indiana Fever pulls her and sits her for a few games. I think she is still battling some sort of injury. And less than 12 hours later, the news dropped from the Fever. But it's a tough blow not only to Caitlin because we know that she loves to be on the court. It's a tough blow for the Indiana Fever because that is their superstar. Whether she is playing to the best of her abilities or not, they are still a better team with her on the court.
This was a physical struggle, a quiet battle against a force that went beyond mere basketball mechanics. Her body, it seemed, was already sending out more distress signals than a shipwrecked pirate yelling into a coconut, signaling a deep-seated issue that defied easy explanation. Fans knew, intuitively, something was profoundly wrong. They saw her fighting through something far more insidious than a rough shooting night. And what transpired next, the chilling pattern that began to emerge, would only confirm the worst fears of her most ardent supporters, cementing the unsettling narrative that Clark was not just struggling, but was actively being broken down.
Dealing with an injury, not looking like herself, the game is already out of hand, yet we still put her back in with 45 seconds left. How much patience do I need to have before I can start going nuclear? Because I am getting very frustrated with what I am seeing. To everybody that said Caitlin Clark didn't look like herself, salute to you. For everybody that said Caitlin Clark might be going through something, salute to you. Clearly, you all saw what that person that stands there like this can't see.
As the visible physical signs became undeniable, so too did the increasingly brutal treatment she endured on the court, transforming every game into what felt less like a basketball contest and more like a gladiatorial combat, a relentless, almost personal assault. From the opening whistle, it was glaringly clear. Caitlin Clark had a target painted squarely on her back, a bullseye visible to everyone, but, it seemed, the officials. We're not talking about typical WNBA physicality, the robust, hard-nosed play that defines competitive basketball. This was something far more sinister, more deliberate, bordering on outright sabotage.
Do look at it, and you take a look at the injury. Stephanie White spoke about it, so let me give you the latest. This all just came out, so this is all as I speak. Basically, Tony East, shout out to him. This is the video of Stephanie White discussing the Caitlin Clark injury.
With Caitlin, when did you guys find out about this groin injury and how much of an absence do you expect from her beyond today?
Yeah, late last night. I think it's very much a day-to-day thing, how she responds to treatment. I stay in my lane and let our strength and conditioning and our physical, our AT staff do what they do best. But yeah, I found out late last night, and then we'll treat it day to day.
Back to back.
Opponents seemed to approach her with an almost gleeful disregard for her well-being, their elbows flying with reckless abandon, shoulders charging into her ribs with sickening thuds, hips checking harder than a TSA agent with a grudge, often making contact far from the ball. It wasn't about gaining a strategic advantage in a pure basketball sense. It felt like a constant, grinding assault designed not just to stop her from scoring, but to rattle her, to wear her down, to break her spirit, and perhaps to injure her. Every drive to the basket became a dangerous gamble, every screen a potential car crash. You could practically hear the unspoken message. Welcome to the WNBA. This is what you get for stealing our spotlight.
The cat is out the bag, dog, for Indiana Fever star Caitlin Clark. It's being reported that she has suffered a left groin injury and she is out. Now, we all knew Caitlin Clark's health was a major issue. She has simply been playing some of the worst basketball of her career, and a lot of people, even myself, has been pretty vocal about Caitlin Clark and this shooting slump. A lot of people was blaming it on the front office. That's why I didn't even go down that line and produce content blaming it on the front office. There had to have been a reason why Caitlin simply wasn't Caitlin, and I told y'all, sources was telling me that something was bothering.
The sheer volume of these collisions, the blatant disregard for her safety, the way she was bodied like she was trying to smuggle secrets out of a forbidden zone, it all raised deeply uncomfortable questions. Was this a coordinated strategy, an unspoken pact among players? Was there an underlying, perhaps unwritten, directive to rough up the rookie, to test her resolve, to see if she would tap out under the immense pressure and unrelenting physical punishment? It was less about competing and more about outright demolition.
So Caitlin Clark is out, y'all. She's injured. We don't know what it is. I think they said it's a groin or some shit like that. But guess what? It's not the end of the world, y'all. Only reason the WNBA will suffer is because they don't know how to market their game. Because they rely on being a one-trick pony. That's just like if you're a content creator and I make one viral video, but after I go viral, I stop making videos. That's the problem with the WNBA. They don't know how to make their league popular. They don't know how to celebrate their league and their players. See, Caitlin brought everybody to the WNBA because she has a rare skill that nobody in the WNBA has.
You could practically hear the unspoken message. Welcome to the WNBA. This is what you get for stealing our spotlight. Her body was sending out more distress signals than a shipwrecked pirate yelling into a coconut. But instead of relief, she found only more relentless waves of contact. Whatever the motive, the message delivered on the court was crystal clear. This was a different league, and for Caitlin, it felt like an arena where the rules of engagement had been rewritten, or perhaps simply thrown out. The level of aggression against her surpassed anything seen against other players, making every single possession a hazardous venture, an exercise in survival. This wasn't just bad luck. This was full-blown "is she wearing a target on her back" mode.
Can we stop treating Caitlin Clark like she's some type of villain? The hate that she gets from the other players in the WNBA is unmatched, and I don't understand it. All she's trying to do is put the WNBA on the map and raise it to another level, which is all she has done since she's gotten into the league. Ticket sales are through the roof. Sold out arenas because of Caitlin Clark. The ratings are through the roof. You've got more eyes and more people watching the WNBA now more than ever because of Caitlin Clark. And y'all steadily want to speak bad on her name. Y'all want to flagrant foul, try to fight her, mess her up in the games. Not regular basketball fouls. These are blatant, flagrant fouls trying to hurt this girl.
And here's where the rabbit hole gets truly deep, truly spicy, and utterly infuriating. The complicit silence from the very people sworn to uphold the rules of the game. It was as if the officials were watching a completely different sport, or perhaps operating under a vow of silence, akin to monks at a Himalayan retreat. The fouls against Clark, so obvious they often looked like WWE-grade offenses, physics-defying limb twists, full-body shoves from behind, blatant shoves into the baseline, went uncalled, ignored, or bafflingly, incredibly, chalked up to good defense. It was a level of judicial disconnect that bordered on active participation in her downfall.
Now we finally know what it is, and it is a groin injury. Guys, I don't know what the situation is, what the hell they doing in practice, but we do know Caitlin Clark is being defended pretty aggressively throughout this season. These WNBA women is not taking any breaks with Caitlin Clark, and it's starting to get disturbing. I just did a video yesterday showing you guys the referees not calling certain fouls, allowing Caitlin Clark to constantly get hacked up and down the court. This is sad, man, and I'm hoping she get a speedy recovery. Maybe she sit out a game or two. But guys, we got the Commissioner Cup coming up. We got the All-Star game coming up. This is the second damn injury Caitlin Clark has suffered this season.
You'd have an easier time getting called for jaywalking on the moon than getting a flagrant foul called for knocking Caitlin Clark sideways in the paint, or getting an obvious foul called when she was sent sprawling after a legal screen transformed into an illegal block. The sheer blatantness of these missed calls was not just frustrating, it was suspicious. Was it incompetence so profound it defied belief? Or was there something more intentional at play? A silent directive to let them play, specifically when it came to the league's golden goose? The whistles, which seemed to be permanently affixed to the lips of officials for other players, remained strangely, maddeningly silent for Clark. They seemed to be collecting dust, while her body was collecting bruises.
Honestly, it's just a matter of they're playing on the road versus at home right now. They're very good at Cambridge. Caitlin Clark is very good at Cambridge, shooting about 45% on her three-pointers at home versus, I think, 6% on the road. It's been a very bad shooting season for Caitlin Clark away from home. They need their offense to travel, and it has not. So it's a point of concern if the Fever can't figure out how to turn this around, especially because they're a little bit shorthanded too. You know, they're missing Damaris Dantas for the AmeriCup, so they're a little thinner than you might have expected for a team that supposedly added up so much depth during the offseason. They're smaller, they're not rebounding the ball particularly well, and it looks great when, like, the crowd's behind them and the momentum is going at home, and then the minute some adversity hits, like, there's just a lack of punch.
Fans screamed at their screens, their voices hoarse with righteous indignation. Commentators, often treading carefully, murmured about the double standard, the inexplicable discrepancies in officiating. Yet, the referees remained stoic, their expressions blank, their actions, or lack thereof, sending a chilling, unspoken message. This systemic failure to protect her, this selective blindness to the rules, was more than just poor officiating. It spoke to a profound issue of integrity, suggesting that the league itself was, through its appointed arbiters, silently endorsing this brutal physicality. Because when your biggest star, the very engine of your newfound popularity, is being pummeled nightly, and the supposed arbiters of fair play refuse to intervene, it sends a chilling, damaging message to every player across the league. It tells them that rules are selectively enforced, that player safety is conditional, and that the biggest draw can be battered with impunity. This isn't just a miscall, it's a fundamental breakdown of justice on the court, a betrayal of the game itself. It's the silent enabler of the unseen war, allowing it to rage on, unchecked and unpunished. This isn't just a localized problem for the Indiana Fever. This is a gaping, bleeding wound for the WNBA as a whole, revealing a potential self-inflicted wound born from a dangerous, almost hubristic gamble. Caitlin Clark is not merely a player. She's an economic phenomenon, a walking headline, the single biggest driver of interest, revenue, and relevance the league has ever seen in its entire history. She is the currency, the franchise investment, the one-player bailout package. Her Clarkonomics have translated into truly staggering, previously unimaginable numbers. Sold out arenas across the country, not just in Indiana, but wherever she played, commanding ticket prices that once seemed astronomical for the league. Unprecedented television ratings that broke viewership. Yet, despite being the golden goose-laying diamond eggs, the league itself seems strangely, inexplicably reluctant to protect its most valuable asset. To turn a blind eye to the flagrant assaults she endures, to allow referees to simply shrug off bone-jarring hits, to let the narrative of her being tested overshadow the reality of her being battered, is not just negligent, it's practically malpractice. It's as if the WNBA is willing to sacrifice the long-term health and career of its marquee player for the immediate gratification of short-term drama and viral moments. They're playing Russian roulette with their biggest draw, hoping she survives the constant barrage of contact, the incessant physical grind. It speaks to a profound, almost cynical disconnect, a league desperate for eyeballs and dollars, but seemingly unwilling to enforce the very rules designed to protect the players who generate those very things. This is a gamble of epic proportions, a high-stakes poker game where the WNBA is betting its entire future on Caitlin Clark's durability. But what happens if she breaks? What happens if this groin injury is the first domino and the rest of her body follows? The league's silence, its passive acceptance of her brutalization, sends a chilling message to every young athlete considering a professional career. We value your marketability more than your well-being. It's a dangerous precedent, a short-sighted strategy that could lead to an irreversible decline. The WNBA is holding a winning lottery ticket, and it appears to be actively tearing it up piece by piece with every uncalled foul and every moment of inaction. They are risking not just a star, but the very foundation of their newfound success. The physical toll on Caitlin Clark, culminating in this debilitating groin injury, is only one part of a far more complex and devastating picture. Beyond the torn muscles and aching joints, beyond the visible bruises and the tape that adorns her limbs, there's an unspoken, crushing mental and emotional burden she has been carrying, a weight far heavier than any defensive scheme. Imagine, for a moment, being the face of an entire league, the singular reason millions are suddenly tuning in, the subject of every headline, every debate, every viral clip, while simultaneously being treated like a piñata on Cinco de Mayo, subjected to relentless physical punishment game after game. That kind of stress doesn't just wear down muscles. It eats away at confidence, erodes joy, and chips away at the very love for the game that brought her to this point. Her pre-injury performance dip wasn't just physical, it was a visible, undeniable manifestation of the relentless pressure, the constant vigilance required to navigate a landscape where every drive to the basket feels like a dare, every shot attempt a test of sheer willpower. She was not just battling opponents, she was battling a league, its referees, and the monumental weight of expectations. You could see it in her eyes. She was dragging more than just defenders behind her. She was carrying the weight of an entire league's future, plus a few gratuitous elbows to the ribs for good measure. This version of Caitlin looked tired, profoundly worn down, like someone realizing in real time that being the savior of a league comes with an exorbitant, unspoken price tag, and unfortunately, the league isn't picking up the bill for the trauma. This relentless grind, this sheer physical and psychological battering, makes the groin injury seem less like an unfortunate accident and more like an inevitable outcome. The painful, unavoidable consequence of sustained abuse. Her body, pushed to its absolute limits, forced to operate on fumes and sheer willpower, finally tapped out. It was a silent protest, a desperate cry against the brutal reality of her situation. How much patience can one person have before they start going nuclear? How long can anyone withstand such constant pressure, such unmitigated aggression, without something fundamentally breaking? This injury isn't just a strain. It's a testament to the immense, inhuman amount of pressure she's been under, a stark reminder that even the most resilient athletes have their breaking point. It's a tragedy unfolding in real time, the slow unraveling of a generational talent under the weight of an entire league's unexamined choices and silent consent. Adding insult to injury, the Indiana Fever's management and coaching staff appear to have compounded the problem through what many are now calling a series of alarming missteps and a stunning lack of foresight. The signs, as fans clearly observed with their own eyes, were flashing like a strobe light on overdrive for weeks. The pronounced limping, the visible discomfort, the telltale tape around her upper leg, the uncharacteristic struggles that defied her known talent. If Caitlin's body were a high-performance race car, the check engine light would have been screaming red since week 3, demanding immediate attention. Yet, instead of preserving her, resting her, or perhaps building some much-needed depth around her so she could actually breathe and recover, the Fever, astonishingly, doubled down. They played her heavy minutes, often extending her time on the court, even when games were clearly out of hand, like a final desperate plea to keep their golden goose on display, even if she was clearly operating on one leg and a prayer. They thrust her into every single marketing campaign, every media appearance, every promotional event, relentlessly pushing her into the spotlight, seemingly oblivious to the fact that their star was running on fumes and tendon pain, her body screaming for respite. It's like turning up the radio to drown out the alarming sound of a failing engine, hoping the noise will somehow fix the underlying mechanical issue. They saw dollar signs, ESPN highlights, and sold-out seats, and tragically, my DMN, they forgot she was human. The team that was banking on turning the franchise around with a generational talent seems to have treated her more like a tireless workhorse, a marketing prop, than a delicate, invaluable asset that required careful management and protection. The decision to keep playing her despite obvious distress signals, despite her visible agony, raises serious, deeply uncomfortable questions about player safety protocols, long-term strategic planning, and the immediate, all-consuming pressures of capitalizing on a phenomenon. Their star player, their walking ATM, has a groin strain now, and suddenly everyone's scrambling to find the pin code again, faced with the brutal, undeniable reality that their entire business model was being held together by the knees of a 22-year-old. They effectively chose immediate profit over sustainable health, a decision that could prove catastrophic. This isn't just a coaching error, it's a management failure of epic proportions, a short-sighted blunder that could send the Fever, and perhaps the entire WNBA, into a tailspin. They had a treasure, and they treated it like a tool. And now everyone is paying the price. Now, with Caitlin Clark sidelined, the WNBA stands at a perilous, almost apocalyptic crossroads, staring down a looming reckoning that could very well define its future. For better, or far more likely, for worse. What happens when the engine of your unprecedented growth sputters and stalls? What happens when the brightest star in your galaxy starts to burn out, not from natural progression, but from systematic, relentless erosion? If this keeps up, if Caitlin's groin injury is merely the first domino to fall in a cascading series of physical breakdowns, if she's truly being run into the ground, then the Fever might not just lose a few games. The league might lose the entire future they were frantically building on her back. No matter how many jerseys you sell, no matter how many eyeballs you capture, you simply cannot sell greatness if greatness is constantly being stretched off the court every other week, if your marquee player is sidelined more often than she's dazzling. The idea of her participating in the All-Star Game or the Commissioner's Cup now feels less like an opportunity and more like a dangerous, completely unnecessary risk, another chance for her to be subjected to the very forces that put her here. Why should she endure further punishment, further risk, further mental anguish for a league that seems unwilling or unable to protect her, to step in, to enforce its own damn rules? Let the league feel what it's like when she's not there to save the show, when the stands aren't packed to the rafters, when the television ratings plummet back to the forgotten numbers of yesteryear. Let the Fever management finally grasp the cold, hard, brutal fact that their entire business model, their newfound relevance, their entire hopes, are tethered to the health and well-being of a single, increasingly fragile player. Because if the referees don't miraculously start doing their jobs, if the league doesn't step in and declare open season on rookies officially over, then don't be surprised when the next game feels like deja vu, with a familiar, depressing sight of ice packs, grimaces, and the bitter taste of regret. The WNBA holds a golden, fragile opportunity to cement its place in the sports world, to become a truly dominant force. But it hangs precariously, agonizingly, on its ability to protect the very player who brought it to this unprecedented precipice of fame. If they fail, if they continue to prioritize short-term gain over long-term sustainability, then the future they envision will remain just that. A distant, unattainable vision, forever clouded by the dark shadow of a broken promise and a broken star. The clock is ticking, and the WNBA is dangerously close to hitting a point of no return. Caitlin Clark's groin injury isn't merely an unfortunate setback, a random happenstance in a grueling season. It's a stark, painful indictment of a league seemingly unable, or perhaps more terrifyingly, unwilling to protect its most valuable asset. This wasn't just bad luck. This was a narrative, a chilling, ongoing story of systematic exposure and perplexing inaction. The WNBA, at this very moment, stands at a critical, defining juncture. Will it finally acknowledge the uncomfortable, deeply unsettling truths about the targeted physicality, the baffling officiating, and its own short-sighted management that prioritizes immediate spectacle over long-term sustainability? Or will it continue to watch idly, passively, almost complacently, as its brightest star is systematically broken down piece by agonizing piece for the sake of a few more viral moments? This isn't just about winning games or selling tickets anymore. It's about safeguarding a generational talent, ensuring the integrity of the sport itself, and preserving the very promise of a groundbreaking future. If the league fails to act decisively, to enforce its own rules, to hold players and officials accountable, and to prioritize player safety above all else, then the lingering, haunting question won't be when Caitlin Clark makes her triumphant return. No, the far more terrifying question will be whether the WNBA, having squandered its miracle, having allowed its guiding light to flicker and dim, will ever truly recover its lost spark, or if it will simply fade back into the shadows from which Caitlin Clark so brilliantly pulled it. The choice is stark, the consequences profound, and the world is watching, waiting to see if they will finally choose to protect their future or simply let it crumble.